This ends now.
I want to go ahead and I want to move on to the next part of my stream, and that is for my review for Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. And for those that don't know, chat, this film stars Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, a number of other recognizable actors, Hugh Grant, and it follows a charming thief and a band of unlikely adventurers who embark on this epic quest to retrieve a long-lost relic, but they also encounter numerous dangers along the way. Kind of before I get into my overall thoughts on the movie, I did want to talk about just my thoughts and my experiences with Dungeons and Dragons in general, the property itself. I have played like a few sessions of Dungeons and Dragons, nothing like a long form campaign, which a lot of these campaigns can go on for days, weeks, years, of course. But I have tried it out, and I was always intrigued by the idea of creating your own character and all these different adventures, and the dungeon master throwing all these different challenges at you. I always liked that idea. I think it's really fun. I just thought even at the time when I was playing, I wasn't with the right group. But thanks to a lot of, listen, Dungeons & Dragons has been popular for decades, Chad, and it's always been cool and interesting. It had its, weird time in which you had all these groups saying that it was satanic and it was the work of the devil, the satanic panic, obviously, during the 80s. But, far from it. It's just, it's just people having fun. But it's always been growing in popularity, and now people that played Dungeons and Dragons during that time, they're now making content. We kind of seen it proliferate in the mainstream and mainstream media, in shows like Stranger Things and, a Critical Role, and of course, Critical Role's content being adapted to, animated shows like The Legend of Vox Machina, which I have talked about and I've reviewed. I've done a review commentaries for. Love that series, chat. They're doing another one of their campaigns, Mighty Nine, that's coming up soon. Yes, there have been some issues with adapting the property, obviously. The Dungeons and Dragons 2000s film, which I've reviewed and I've done review commentaries for, and it is very terrible, chat, and does not honor the legacy that is Dungeons and Dragons. But, I for most of it, I would say I've had some really positive experiences with the property overall. So it's fun to see it, being shown to the mainstream and showcased in very positive ways, especially, with the history that it had to deal with, and how unfair it was towards people who loved the game back in the 80s. So it's been great to see those people vindicate and say hey, isn't it crazy, chat? Back in the 80s, that's again not that long ago, 40 years ago, and it's everyone was saying it was the work of the devil, and now it's $150 million movie. that is just kind of nuts to me. It's it shows you how times they change, and people they finally get that stick out of their ass and they can relax. But moving on from the stick in the ass, I did want to kind of just talk about the film itself. First of all, listen, I can safely say that Honor Among Thieves is definitely better than Dungeons and Dragons 2000, all right? I think some people might have been curious about that just out of sheer fear of another critical commercial flop like that. But this film is far more competently made in terms of its direction, its writing, and its characters. Additionally, I personally kind of just get the sense that this film, overall, I think it's both respectful and very reverent of D&D, while also having a lot of fun just, in this world, participating in this world. Listen, you get all of your epic fantasy fare, you get your cool action scenes, with warriors and sorcerers and numerous creatures, chat, owl bears and panthers with hollow projecting tentacles and mimics and all that, and gelatinous cubes that burn you and eat you alive. But the thing about the movie that I personally just really appreciated it for was the cast. Was the cast of characters who all feel like they're having a blast making this film. The film has a huge cast of recognizable actors, but for me, the standouts are, really just the core cast. Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Justice Smith, Sophie Lillis. You might not recognize the name, but she played the main female lead in the It movies. And she's been in some other things like, Sharp Objects. She did this Netflix series, which I really liked, that got canceled after one season. But she's here. Reggie Smith-Page, and of course, Hugh Grant. And man, Hugh Grant, he kills it in this role. He's so good. But, each respective character, I think, is great. Chris Pine, he's playing the bard. He's no warrior. As he says, I plan things. That's really what he does. I make plans, and when those plans fail, I make other plans, in an attempt to cover up how badly those other plans were. And he's great. He's definitely the leading character, central lead. But I don't know, he has this roguish charm, which we've seen from him before. But as now that he's a little older, looks like those Star Trek years are behind him. Chad, no more Star Trek movies, which I thought he made a fun Captain Kirk, honestly. Here, I think he's great. He's a perfect lead. I've always liked Chris Pine. I've always want to see him in more things, and he is just so well suited for this role. He just has this kind of like dry delivery, despite playing like oftentimes like a lot of like charming, roguish comedic characters. Like he just has this kind of like dry delivery that I just personally love. It's not like whoa, it's not like goofy or that's the other thing. It's like there's not like a lot of like crazy goofiness going on in this movie. There's comedic moments, there's funny moments, but there's nothing like a Marlon Wayans character. There's no one that's going, whoa, or people that you would assume would be that way. They don't really do. But you have people that are screaming in horror because of what they're fighting, but it never comes across as obnoxious. And like his character, Chris Pine's character, he's just great. He's just got this dry comedic wit. And so you gotta pay kind of close attention to what he's saying. He's like, oh, that was pretty funny. And there's a lot of great gags with him. Michelle Rodriguez, I have to say, like the two of them, who would have thought, Chad, that Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez would just have this natural chemistry? They're not love interests in the movie. But they have kind of like this fun brother. they don't even have to say it, but they just have this kind of fun brother-sister relationship that I really like, especially when it comes to like raising Chris Pine's like daughter. We get like a lot of flashbacks with that. That to me was really cool. She is very much the fighter. She is the brawler. She is the barbarian, the warrior, Chad. They give her some great action scenes where she's throwing people around. She's using swords. She's using axes. She's using hatchets and knives. And she's great, but she's also fun. Like her back and forth with Chris Pine is fantastic. Really love that. And Justin Smith, who I've always really liked as an actor, I feel like he hasn't always been used well. Like, the Jurassic Park films, I feel like that role for Fallen Kingdom, which again, not a great character, where he is very much playing the guy that's screaming at everything, chat. The minority sidekick that gets scared and runs away and screams and is cowardly. Like, he is not that there, which I was wondering, like, are they going to do that to him again? And not really. Like, he's a sorcerer who's not really great at being a sorcerer. And he's dealing with a lot of internal issues. And you would think that, like, oh, it's going to be set up for when he's, always incompetent and he's an idiot. And he's not. Like, he gets better throughout. Like, everyone improves throughout the movie. They become more competent throughout the film. And it's not just all comedic hijinks around them. Again, they do this really great job of just balancing tones of everybody. And he's great. He's a lot of fun. Again, he has excellent chemistry with everybody. Sophia Lillis, who I've always liked seeing in things, again, for It and in Sharp Objects in her small role in that show. Great show, by the way. If you guys have never watched Sharp Objects, watch Sharp Objects. Excellent miniseries on HBO based on a book. Nice little kind of crime thriller book. And of course that Netflix series she did. But she plays what's it called? Tiefling? I think it's called a tiefling, where they almost look like elves, but they have like these horns growing on their heads and they have tails, and she's able to transform into different animals and creatures. Like in the trailer, you see like the owl bear. All I'll say is they have she's excellent. She's excellent in the movie. She's kind of similar to Chris Pine's character, where she kind of has this kind of like dry comedic wit to her. And he kind of has this like bit of a tragic backstory where it's like, yeah, I was born a tiefling. My parents were like, get this fucking gross baby thing out of here. And so I've hooked up with all these elves, and I just want to help them. And I'll join you in your merry band, but only to help my people. She gets like a particular action scene, which is so awesome, that really showcases all her abilities. I don't even want to spoil it, chat, but what they do with her abilities as she transforms to different animals and stuff is great. You have Reggie Smith-Page, again, an actor you probably don't recognize his name. He plays, I think, your prototypical D&D character. He is the noble paladin, and like, I will say he feels subtly inspired by maybe someone like Drax, where he doesn't really understand sarcasm or irony. And no, not that he doesn't understand them, he just doesn't like them. But he's like the typical hero that everyone would probably look up to. But again, he's not again, it's the balance of everything about this movie that impressed me. Because they're like, oh, they're going to set him up to be this character who is like, oh, everyone loves him, but he's really a dick. And he's not that. He's competent, but he's not overbearing. He's not obnoxious. He's good at what he does, and he has a bit of a sense of humor too about it. And he's self-aware. And I think that was cool. So he doesn't come across as like a Drax like knockoff or something, despite not liking like irony and sarcasm, right? I thought that was pretty cool. And he gets a number of really awesome action scenes. But I think the big one for me though, I think that for a lot of people, like the biggest standout in this cast is Hugh Grant. That man, he is chewing scenery in the best way possible. Like you had Jeremy Irons in the original Dungeons and Dragons, and he was chewing scenery, but just because it was just so ridiculous performance, like, oh, like just the faces he was making. I mean, literally thought like his teeth were gonna shoot, like his dentures were gonna pop out and go towards the camera and try to bite you. Hugh Grant just looks like he's having so much fun. He is just giggling constantly, and he plays the rogue character. The one that has been able to acquire all this wealth over time and is in this leadership position. But I don't know, just his reactions to certain things just kill me. They don't even feel like they were in the script. They just felt like they were improv. And like the stuff that he says, I think will catch a lot of people off guard. I really loved it. I think he might be everyone's favorite character, like definitely like one of their absolute favorite characters from this movie. But yeah, the core cast is great. They all bounce off each other real well, and they have this chemistry. They have this like little dysfunction, and then of course there's that little dysfunction, of course, of all these groups who they have all these different abilities and they want to do things their way. But there's never a point where like they hate each other. It's like, well, fuck you, I'm leaving. Like nothing like that. Anytime it looks like it's getting to the point, they resolve it. And I thought that was really cool. And, they get in all the scraps you want. They solve puzzles, and they plan heists. Man, that's the thing, Chad. They live up to the subtitle, Honor Among Thieves, because they're a bunch of thieving bastards. Like, the heist that they plan out here, very clever. I don't even want to say, like, how they do it, like, the mystical objects they have and the tricks and the tools of the trade, because a lot of it hasn't been in the trailers. But what they do, it's like, oh, that's really neat. And you'll recognize certain things, whether you've played tabletop games, whether you played video games, which of course video games are inspired by tabletop games. And to see all that, I was like, that was really, really fun. And of course, you get plenty of action that is just reminiscent of the big sword and sorcery set pieces that you've seen in a lot of recent D&D content, like Vox Machina, a lot of that, definitely. I mean, they come from the same cloth, of course. You have all your back alley brawls, your battles against morbidly obese, chunky dragons, and, your wizard duels. But again, there's like just a couple of shots in this movie. There's this one particular sequence, I talked about it before, where you're just following this one character as they're discovered and they're transforming into different things, just trying to escape. And I thought that was just really cool. And again, all the heists are really fun. They're great. If I have any like big criticisms of the movie, you have like these evil red wizards. They have an official name, some Latin name, I forget. I don't remember. But they're kind of generic. Like these evil red wizards are just pretty much your straightforward power craving villains. They just want to turn everyone into zombies with red fart gas using a horn. It's like, we really want to turn you into zombies like that. We just want to conquer the world. That's really it. It serves its purpose in the movie. It's this obstacle they need to overcome. But, and they have this cool kind of demonic zombie look. They all look gross. And the character's like, oh, God, you're gross looking. You smell. Like the character's always like, you smell really bad. I thought that's funny. But there's nothing really about them. There's one shot where you see kind of one of them in the darkness. It's like, Jesus, it looks like it's from like a horror film or something. But there's not a lot to them, a lot of it feels like they're setting them up to be like, I don't know, like a more of a bigger threat if in a sequel, if they do a sequel. But Hugh Grant is, he's more fun. He's a much more fun film, or excuse me, much more fun villain in the film. And he outshines them with his just aloof and smarmy nature. There's also just a lot of references to other D&D adaptations here. And the thing about them that I appreciate, because even I'm like, wait a minute, is that what they're referencing? They don't stop the movie to go, huh? And there it is. That's like, if you miss it, you miss it, you know? And those that know will know. And those that don't won't feel like they're being told, you know, like they're missing something. It's just like, hey, we got to keep going. We got to keep moving. But they do reference a lot of stuff in here. And there's also a really weird, but also really fun cameo that sets up what I would describe as a funny, recurring, horny gag in the movie. I really liked that they definitely touch on at the very end of the film again, which that's pretty funny. But overall, chat, you know, this is just has it's perfect spring summer movie fare. Nice balance of action, nice balance of drama, nice balance of comedy with some fun characters that I feel like a lot of people are going to just really enjoy, just bouncing off each other, you know, and Hugh Grant just being like an effective villainous foil for everybody, right? He's just so damn charming. And it also effectively uses just the D&D property to tell an entertaining story. You know, for me, this is the definition of a full price film. I really like the movie. I actually want to see this again. I think it's worth seeing again. I'd buy this. Hell, I'd buy this on Blu-ray. It was great. And so for anyone that had like any misgivings because of obviously the original movie, or you know, if you're like, well, I'm not really into Dungeons and Dragons and on the tabletop game, that's okay. That's fine, because it's a fun sword and sorcery movie. That's what it is. It kind of also reminded me at times, in the best way possible, Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one specifically, because that's the only one I really like, Curse of the Black Pearl. Just in its sensibilities, in some of its set pieces, and the back and forth between some of the characters. It reminded me of, although I think honestly even better, because I feel like the cast here are like better than like Will Turner or Elizabeth Swann. But, you know, like their dynamic with, you know, Jack Sparrow, Johnny Depp's character. It was like, oh, this is it reminds me of that. And I thought that was really cool. Like, if they do make a sequel, I'd be worried, like, okay, don't go with the sequel and make everyone hate each other, because that would suck. You know, it's like, hey, bring new characters in here, and then the group expands, and we, you know, have a nice, you know, sense of camaraderie and chemistry between everybody. But it reminded me of the Black Pearl, right? There's not too many. It's like, it's a fun fantasy action adventure film, and I'm trying to think of like any like really truly big action adventure movies that are able to balance all these tones, like recent ones. Like we have plenty of action films, no doubt about it. Some great action movies, of course. But in terms of like action adventure, I'm like, I'm trying to think of anything. There's been a lot of failures, but a lot of flops, no doubt about that. But this one, I think this one was great. I think it's extraordinarily entertaining, whether you're a fan of D&D or not. So yeah, chat, I give this a full price, you know, on the double toasted scale. But how do you guys feel about this movie? Did you like it? Are you gonna check it out? Let me know. I hope everyone enjoyed the video, and I wanted to take the time to tell you about the movie of the week, a film that I really enjoy and one that I think you will too. This week's movie is the John Wick trilogy. Just in time for the release of John Wick Chapter 4, the trilogy stars Keanu Reeves and follows a legendary hitman who is forced out of retirement to seek revenge against the men who killed his dog, a final gift from his recently deceased wife. If anyone is interested in purchasing this fantastic film series, please make use of the Amazon affiliate link below in the video description. Your purchase of the film not only earns me a helpful commission, but any purchase you may make after clicking the link itself for 24 hours would help earn me additional commissions as well. Doesn't matter if it's a Blu-ray, a video game, a pair of socks, or a washing machine. Everything within 24 hours of that click can really help the channel. So go ahead and check out the film, enjoy browsing, and enjoy shopping.